From humble beginnings to the pinnacle of success, one man's journey proves that with determination, anything is possible. This is Catch as Catch Can with George Tinsley Sr., inspiring conversations of triumph over adversity. Here's George.
Our guest today is Darrell Griffith, a friend, longtime friend, a family friend from a few years back. Darrell is a legendary figure both on and off the court. Darrell led the University of Louisville to their first championship in 1980, and now works to strengthen the university's connection with the community. Darrell's title, Darrell, correct me if I'm wrong, is Assistant Vice President for Community Engagement at the University of Louisville.
That's correct.
It's a pleasure, man, to see you. Heartwarming. So many years we spent together back in the day at Louisville Male High School, when you were just budding coming into your own. So glad to have an opportunity to sit down with you. Well, let's just start off with you about growing up in Louisville and some of your early experiences that made you fall in love with basketball.
Well, first of all, it's a pleasure to be with you, George, man. I mean, people don't realize, George says we go way back. George inspired me and my teammate Bobby Turner to elevate ourselves and always to play up when it came to playing basketball in the competition that we played in. George dated Sarita, which lived 2 doors down from me, and that's how we became connected. And I always tease George about that green GTO he had back in the day. I know he wish he still had it because of the it's a collector's item, man.
Yeah.
Myself and Bobby Turner, we were tied at the hip when it came to playing basketball. We went to elementary school together, junior high school and high school. And we were always a tandem that wherever we played ball together. And the memorable moment for me is when, watching George play for the Kentucky Colonels. Kentucky Colonels was a pro team in Louisville, Kentucky. A lot of, fans don't realize that San Antonio is the beneficiary of Kentucky Colonels not going to the NBA.
Right.
4 teams that were chosen were the Denver Nuggets, the New Jersey Nets, the Indiana Pacers, and the Kentucky Colonels. And then when John Y. Brown went through his sale and buying the Boston Celtics, that's paved the way for the San Antonio Spurs, which to me, coming from the city of Louisville, is one of the major mishaps of a professional franchise in our city's history. We were at the time had the 6th largest attendance in both leagues.
Mm-hmm.
People don't realize that. Our attendance at that time, we were averaging George 15,075.
Right.
It wasn't a possibility or a problem that we didn't have the attendance. I think it was just a business move that John Y. Brown made, that we were on the short end of the stick with that. In saying that, watching the Colonels, watching George and Dallas Thornton and these guys that play with his dirt boat team, me and Bobby was inspired. George had hops. He had crazy hops. Him and Dallas Thornton, one of the biggest thrills that a lot of us growing up, particularly myself and Bobby Turner and the dirt boat crowd, was to see the layup and the warm-ups before the game, because you got to see the array of dunks that these guys could display. And the reason why it was so appealing to watch is because during my whole career, up until Louisville, you couldn't dunk the basketball.
Right.
Dunk was taken out of the game for like
Right.
9 to 10 years because of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So seeing that, being able to dunk, other than the Colonels, was and seeing it live and in color was great. Now, to reflect on the dirt bowl was the equivalent of Rutgers in our neighborhood, in the city of Louisville. So we had 5,000-6,000 people watch the games on Sundays. The pro league was the main league of the Dirt Bowl, and that was something that myself and Bobby was always attracted to, particularly when they were first in what they call the hole at Shawnee Park, which is it was a dip in the park where the court was in the valley, and then it moved to a new location that the Parks Department had built, which when it flourished, it took off. So I got a lot of my ideas about dunking through George, watching him in the dunk in the layup line. He had a big impact on me. George, you coached, us in junior high school. But I tell you, I don't know if you remember the story that when we talk about playing up, me and Bobby. So we respected George a lot, listened to him, and he was a figure to us that we wanted to strive to be. We asked you one day, could we play on your pro team? And he said, no, I don't think you guys are ready right now, right? So me and Bobby were like, we were some eager guys. So we were like, let's put our own team in, So the following year, we got a bunch of guys together, myself, Bobby, Darrell Macklin, Bob Miller, Robert Stewart, and we just placed ourselves in the pro division, which, that's the mentality that we had to play up. But that whole era, watching you, George, again, achieve what you've achieved, watching how you have took your career that didn't last as long as you wanted to in professional basketball and took advantage of the business sector, which is how you got in touch with the Kentucky Fried Chicken franchises. I watched all that, and at the time I was like, Kentucky Fried Chicken, what's the movie making? And then I seen the connection. Walt Simon, if I'm correct, was
Right.
inspirational because he was a former Kentucky Colonel player that went to KFC. So as young black men, you see older black men in the community do things, and you wonder why. And wondering why gives you a clearer picture of why they did it. I can also mention Lenny Louds. He's a former professional football player, and this entrepreneurship he had and his mindset in the West End and the Louisville community inspired a lot of people, including myself. I think George knows how I feel about him and his family. Again, his wife Teresa used to babysit me and my brother Michael and Cheryl when we were coming up. So we're connected all the way back, and your lives kind of take different journeys when you move, but the memories and the heartfelt connection that you always have will always last forever.
Darrell, you hit on several key points, man. I appreciate the plugs, brother.
Yeah,
that,
oh
that,
no,
that you
man.
gave me, man. And from the heart, I appreciate it. I want to reflect on a couple of points, though, and see if this brings back some memories. First of all, playing in Jerome's little yard there
Oh
where he
yeah,
had the basket. That was the first time that I actually watched you and Bobby, as you mentioned, were joined at the hip. You two playing together there, and realized I saw that ability. And you guys, I think, may have been in seventh grade or somewhere in there. I remember getting you guys together and putting in my 1969 GTO, going out to Newburgh and challenging teams out there and threatening you all that if we didn't win, you were going to have to walk home.
yeah, I remember that. Yeah, So and that process that you did, George, uh, believe it or not, it stuck with us. Because what you did, you took us out of our element in our own neighborhood and placed us in another neighborhood. So as we got older, one of the guys I mentioned on the dirt bowl team, Robert Stewart, he was a little older than us, and he would get me, myself, Bobby Turner, Duran Macklin, and he was on driving at the time. And he would take us to different areas. So we was
Right.
like, we get tired of playing at Shawnee Park, tired of playing at Chickasaw, same talent, But he would take us to different areas, not only in the area, but we would go to Bowling Green. We would go to someplace in Indiana. He would find places where
Right.
it would be good competition to play. So that whole mentality that you had taking us out of the neighborhood, that's
Right.
what
Right.
gave us that opportunity.
Yeah. Well, you guys were some special guys, and not only your ability, but your character, and it was always heartwarming for most of us older guys that were experiencing sport and seeing what it had done for us to see the possibilities for you all. You mentioned the Dirt Bowl, and I got to tell you now, I had on my earlier show Artis Gilmore. So, the one thing that always comes up with Artis Gilmore, as far as did Darrell Griffith dunk on you? And my comment has always been when someone asked me, I wasn't there, I don't remember, but when Darrell first started playing in the Dirt Bowl, as I recall, he was in the ninth grade, eighth, ninth grade, so he wasn't at male. When he came to male, Wade and I told you guys that you could not play in a Dirt
Right,
Bowl. So
right,
you guys weren't playing then. So prior to that, in the ninth grade, the one thing that jumped out to me was Ron King shooting a jump shot out of the corner and you coming out from underneath the basket down where the block is and blocking his shot. And that was the most amazing. You were in ninth grade then, ninth or eighth. That was the
right.
most
Ninth
amazing
grade.
thing that I could see. It was like the kid who played at Duke that blocked someone's shot one time. It was the only other time I've seen something like that. But that was the one time that I said, this kid is ready. He could play in the pro league. No problem at all. You and Bobby were dominating when you all were playing. So I remember those times, man, that your ability really came out. So when Artis mentioned that the time I said, oh, okay, the ninth grade, when he was in ninth grade, I saw a lot of amazing things that he did. So you know, we kind of let it
Well,
go.
well, understandably, artists wouldn't concede to that, but I ran across the other last year at the barber shop,
Uh-huh.
right? Didn't realize that it was one of the Hackets that refereed the game,
Yes.
and he refereed the game that I dunked on Gilmore,
Uh-huh.
and he was telling the barber shop about that, and he
Yeah.
ended up getting on the phone the other referee that refereed that game. So I didn't realize that these guys ref the game, you know. But all I have to say to that is that if you come in this neighborhood and you ask people who was at that game, they will tell you exactly what happened, just without me even saying anything. So I'll leave it at that, George.
Right, yeah, and we'll let that story go. I believe you, no question in my mind. But Darrell, when you were going through in junior high school, you were being recruited by a number of different schools because at that time you could go wherever you wanted
That's
to
correct.
go. And tell me what your thought process was as you were going through that. You and Bobby, but you primarily.
Well, just to give a little history about our junior high school league was phenomenal.
Yes.
It was major. And even when we went to high school is not the same, George, as it was. I think busing depleted the talent that was in the city. We had some major talented players in the city that was just phenomenal. If you think about it, George, if all that talent had stayed and went to University of Louisville,
Right,
you know,
right,
you speak of Ron King, Ron King, Otto Petty, they all went to Florida State, went to the Final Four.
right,
Jerome Perry, was it Jerome? Yeah, Jerome Perry. He left. He didn't go to Mel. He left and went to West Kentucky. They went to the Final Four.
right.
So it was, and I think somebody did a study on in the neighborhood that I grew up in within a mile area. It was about 10 guys that went to the Final Four.
Right.
Myself and Bobby and Duran Macklin, the Bunton brothers, Otto Petty, Ron King. And, I know I'm missing a few others, but that neighborhood and that area was phenomenal as far as talent concerned.
Yeah.
But from a junior high school standpoint, my edge of going to Male was my brother Michael.
Uh-huh.
That's how
Right,
I got the number
right,
35.
right.
Michael went to Male. He was leaving as I was coming in. But we had Central, we had Shawnee, with Honeybee. Let me tell you the Honeybee story. So I went to junior high school. George, for 1 week at Shawnee. My
Okay.
mom would not want me to go to Duval Junior High School. Duval Junior High School was in the middle of the projects. Yeah,
It was tough.
Southwick, Carter Homes, and Duval was in the middle.
Right.
Coming home from school was a challenge.
Yes.
But you just kind of adapt to it. Me and Bobby we'd never go home by ourselves. We would go home together, go through Southwick, and then once we crossed the railroad tracks, we were safe. So, but my mother, witnessed what my brother had to go through. To me, it was just life. As a young man, it was just life. And she didn't want me to go to Duval Junior High School. Enrolled in Shawnee Junior High School. And the first week, we went on field trips. And she would ask me, "What'd you do today?" Well, we went on a field trip to Shawnee Park. We went on a field trip to Locust Grove. And we wasn't there really doing anything from an educational standpoint. And I told Mama, I said, "Mama, we don't really do anything in class." So she, got with my brother Michael, and we decided that okay, you can transfer to Duval Junior High School. Now,
Right.
back in the day, if I decided to go to Duval on a Monday, leaving from Shawnee, I was there on a Tuesday.
Okay.
Transfer was that quick.
Right.
So it was easy to go. So that's how I got to Duval Junior High School. My brother Michael went there. He played there. And then, one of the George, one of your coaches, Warren Wainwright for the what was the CBA? What was the team you guys had?
I forget the name, but yes, he was the coach. Yes.
Yeah, he was one of the coaches that was very, very instrumental. And then, from there we had the junior high school leader at Male High School,
Yeah.
which was a graffiti and recruiting ground for all the high schools would come and watch all of us play at Male High School. So, it all came down to going to school where my brother went to,
Right. Right.
and that's how I got the number 35. But
Yeah.
when I went to Male, I got my brother's number.
Yeah, I recall that. Darrell, you mentioned busing. Male High, from the time where you went to high school, where I went to high school, had great teams, great talent from, I think, 69 through 75, which busing came in 76, and that's when we lost a bunch of guys that were on that team. I got bused to Southern High School to teach there, and so that was part of my demise as far as leaving also. But Male had some great talent throughout that period. So busing did change a lot of things. A lot of great talent, as you mentioned, came from the Louisville West End and also the East End, Smoketown,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
the East End as well. But it's great talent that went on to do great things in the league.
George, we were the number one high school team in the nation before busing.
Yes, yes,
And
yeah,
busing kind of depleted it, but I mean, we still got tabbed being the number one high school
yeah,
team. But I remember the first time I flew was when you and Coach Houston got us to go to the Dr. Pepper Classic in Houston to play
right,
the number two high school rated team. I
right,
think it was Cashmere. And so we had went all, we were taught in this great team. We went to Houston and played. They had a top ranked team, and we went to Kingsport, Tennessee. They had a top ranked team, and then
right.
we went to Cincinnati U's, and so we barnstorm like Oak Hill,
Yeah.
all over the country playing basketball, and then we come back and lose at home to Trinity. You remember that?
Yeah, yep, I do. Well, that experience, Darrell, that we had at Male, from the standpoint of coaches, from the standpoint of even community leaders that were coming to assist and help out
Yep,
in any way they can.
that's right.
The other administrators, other coaches were there to help out, and we had a guy by the name of Willie Lee Carter that kept us all in the mix. Did any of those stories stand out to you?
About Willie Lee?
Willie Lee, or
Yeah,
that
well,
whole experience?
George, you mentioned Willie Carter. You mentioned how the community came in and the staff of the school came in. So when we went on a road trip, we never rented a bus. It
Yeah.
was always cars, and we got in different cars.
Right.
Now, Willie Carter had a sleeping impediment
Yeah.
that George and Coach Houston, they were pranksters. They would always set him up for different kind of jokes. But Willie would go to sleep at a bed of an
Not
hour.
like
I mean, literally.
Yeah.
And so when we went out of town, nobody wanted to drive with Willie Lee. because he wasn't going to drive for long.
Yeah.
We would, maybe travel, if we going to say Owensboro, we'll leave my last 10 miles before somebody else had to drive
Oh,
because he's in the
right.
car asleep.
Right.
But one of the things that remind me of one night I had went to a concert and at the Louisville Gardens. And afterwards, we kind of met up at the White Castle on Broadway. And then it was probably about 1 o'clock. I'm on my way home. I'm coming up Walnut Street. And I probably was the only one on the road going toward the West End that night. And you know how you there's a bunch of lights and you stop at a light and you see a light in front of you backing up a car light. So as close I got, that car had moved. And the closer I got, the car had moved. So I pulled up beside the car at the light. And it was Willie Lee. He was in there asleep. So I got out of my car, knocked on the window. I said, Willie, wake up, man. You've been sitting here for at least 15, 20 minutes. And he looked at me and started laughing. And he got on in his car and moved on. But
Yeah.
uh, uh,
Darrell, I remember it just is another piece on this. One day we were practicing, and it was, I think, I forget what had happened, but it was a tough practice, and we were out there really just hard at it. And all of a sudden, Will Lee was on the sideline, and he fell asleep, and he knocked over all the
yep,
chairs.
I remember that. We heard all that ruckus, and everybody stopped. I remember that, John.
Yeah, yeah. He always kept a light moment in there when we were
Yeah.
going through those tough times. But Darrell, as you went through high school and you started thinking in terms of going to college, and a lot of guys that came through Louisville, played in the Louisville programs, different high schools, chose to leave the city and go other places for whatever particular reason, but just some wanted to get away. But you were one of the few that decided to stay in the area and go to University of Louisville. Give us a little understanding what went through your mind on that, with all of the choices that you had when coming out as Mr. Basketball, and actually even being chosen to participate in the Olympic trials during that time frame. What made you decide on Louisville?
Well, coming out of high school, you know, I was pretty grounded because of, you and Coach Houston and my family and being and playing around a lot of, again, I used the term earlier, we always played up, myself and Bobby. So we played
Right.
against the competition that grounded you, even though you hear a lot of the hoopla about you, coming up against you and George and Coach and Junior Bridgman, playing against guys that you watched and watching the Colonels practice at the Crawford Gym. So you got humbled to the point to where you had to make a wise decision when it came to your choice. Being the number one high school player in the nation, I had couple of pro contracts that was thrown my way, particularly with the Colonels at that time.
Believe me, I know it.
Yeah. And so, when that discussion came up with my dad, he was like, "You going to school?"
Yeah.
He said, and it was the right choice for me. It was, you felt good about it that, hey, I got proteins wanting me, but, I decided to stay and go to school because that was preached by my parents to get my education. That came first.
Right.
But the choice to go to University of Louisville was always in the back of my mind because I had seen how the teams, particularly that 75 team with Junior Bridgman and Alan Mercury, that came up short, and how the community really was behind the university. In high school, you got Mayo, you got Central, you got Shawnee, all them fans, and everybody in the city, all University of Louisville fans.
Right.
So that gave me a different view of going to college. It's like, I'm not carved out of a fan base in the East End and the West End. This is a bigger picture. When you go to college, you got a lot of more people that are rooting for you and wanting you to do well. Me still being undecided, me and Bobby always wanted to go to school together. They hired Coach Houston as the first Black assistant coach from Male High School. We used to talk about the demise when he was leaving. So that was, kind of a writing on the wall, So Coach said, hey, I'm going to go be the University of Louisville coach. And And a lot of people think that it was to get me and Bobby, but coach was groundbreaking,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and people don't realize that. So and he was another University of Louisville grad. So George,
And one of the first black players to ever go to get a scholarship at the University of Louisville.
yeah, he was, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly,
Mhm.
and so to me, them choosing coach was wise, well, without me and Bobby, you know.
Mhm.
But it had a major impact on me wanting to go there. And not only that, but wanting to uh, bring a championship to your hometown was always in the back of my mind. And I felt that I could do that with a good supporting cast. Coach Crum had just came from UCLA first year, went to the Final Four, so he had good pedigree. So it was between Louisville and Michigan. But I ended up choosing Louisville. My dad knew I was going to Louisville all along. And I let
Yeah.
my dad know about 3:00 in the morning. And he said, "Son, what are you doing up?" And I said, "Hey, Dad, I made a decision." And he said, "Where you going?" I said, "I'm going to go to Louisville." He patted me on my shoulder and said, "I knew that," and went back to bed.
Yeah.
So, it was the right choice for me. It
Yeah.
really was.
Well, I'm gonna put it out here, Darrell, that you mentioned several pro teams. I had a scout come to me. I was out at Freedom Hall at one of the Colonels games,
Uh-huh.
and come to me and offer me $10,000 if I was be able to convince you to go to the New York Nets.
Uh-huh.
They were going to draft you,
I was
and
one of
then
the
the
team.
Colonels were going to buy your contract back.
Right.
And
Yep.
when they did that, first thing I did was I went down to tell your mom and dad about it, and also contacted Wade and Coach Houston and told him about it. That whole thing backfired on me because Coach Crum, when he found out about it, I don't know what he felt, but from that point on, he and I had a rough period of time for about 4 or 5 years there,
Yeah.
where there
Yeah.
wasn't any speaking or anything. Because if you remember, when I left Mayo, I went to the Kentucky Fair and Exposition
Mhm.
Center, and my
Mhm.
job was to manage the Freedom Hall,
Right.
and that's where the University of Louisville was playing. So we had a little contentious situation
Yeah.
there, but that was happening. I'm sure there was other people approached about it
Well,
also.
speaking of, again, this is almost 50 years ago.
Yeah.
But one of the things that was a deterrent factor, for me, just learning from a business standpoint, you can recall this was that, when the leagues wasn't that stability, is to get a personal service contract with the owner.
Mhm. Right.
And they wanted me to sign this 15-year contract, and my dad looked at it and he said, "This is ridiculous." And some other people that I got some information from.
Right.
But I didn't, at the time. Again, it was grateful, but after looking at it and looking at my game, knowing what I needed to work on to be a complete player,
Right.
it would have derailed my career
Yeah.
totally going to
Yeah.
the Cardinals.
Yeah. You made the right choice, man,
Yeah.
it paid off to continue on your career at the University of Louisville. So while you were when you first got out to University of Louisville, I think that was it that time when the Dr. Dunkenstein name
Yes.
was attached to you?
So what happened was, of course, for all the old heads and some of the young people who might listen to this podcast, when I went to the University of Louisville, rap has just hit the scene. In
Mhm.
75, 76, that's when rap was starting to emerge.
Right.
And so we were really R&B guys when I grew up. It was like,
Right.
we were all R&B guys. So one of the big groups that came out was everybody was attracted to was the Parliament Funkadelics.
Mhm.
And my brother Michael was until this day, is a huge Parliament Funkadelic fan. He got all George Clinton CDs. I mean, back in the day, albums and stuff. And he had a character on one of his albums called Dr. Funkenstein.
Oh, right.
And I remember that. And of course, I heard that because me and my brother stayed in the same room. I just constantly heard this. And so when I got to Mayo, George, we were working on a documentary about this. Is when I got to University of Louisville, it was the first year that they reinstated the dunk. Dunk, as I mentioned earlier, we couldn't dunk in high school
Right.
because of the ring. So that was the first year they reinstated the dunk in college basketball. So because George, we used to in middle high school in the warm up lines, we had docs there at the door to watch for the officials. So based on us dunking and stuff in the pre games, people come to the game early just to see us dunking the pre games, and then Doc will look up and wave a towel, let us know that the ref is coming, so we had to stop because you get a technical. So we were able to dunk now in college. You could dunk, so it was just like my eyes just lit up. I was able to display a lot of my jumping abilities. But the character came. It just hit me one night, Dr. Dunkenstein, and then I just said, "Hey, let's take off the D F and put a D on it." Told my brother about it, and he said, "You should go with it." So the media, talked to me one day, and I said, "Hey, I got a new character. It's called Dr. Dunkenstein." So that's how that emerged.
Yeah.
It all
Yeah.
came through college, and
Yeah.
it became a brand.
Yeah. My son today still, George, has a poster in his
Yeah,
room
yeah,
at our house with that you signed that put up there that was his thing,
yeah, with the two balls.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
right. So,
yeah. And when I sat with Nike coming out of college, first thing they did was, marketing wise,
mhm,
was took me to Seattle, and we shot that poster. Yeah. So that's how the character came up.
right.
And
So you have 4 great years at University of Louisville. You win an NCAA championship. Now it's on to the pros. Tell me about the transition there, moving from college to the pros.
well, uh, the key for me, one, was you had to get a good agent.
Mhm.
And I had some good friends of mine they were my mentors at the University of Louisville. Was the Yarmouth family. Congressman Yarmouth, Bill Yarmouth, Bob Yarmouth, his sister, Fran, and their mother passed away recently. But they kind of took me under their wings. Coach Houston introduced me to the family in Vegas when they went to a game we played in Vegas my freshman year. And Coach Crum got married at Vegas, so he introduced me to him, and we just kind of hit it off. And they're a very wealthy family, but you didn't know it. You know,
Right.
grandfather, their father, one was a grandfather was a president of Bank of Louisville. On the other side of the family, the grandfather was president of First National Bank. Their father owned this company called National Energy, which they own Yellow Cab and a whole bunch of stuff. And so, seeing that, from a family standpoint of how, family with money, how they do. And these guys went to school and at different colleges, and they just kind of took me on their wings, and it wasn't nothing forced. The relationship what wasn't forced. So I learned a lot through that family that prepared me to go from the pros. I mean, from college to pros. Financially, because I ask questions. My dad always told me, he said, a question asked is something learned. Never be afraid to ask a question.
Right.
So watching and seeing their family, coming from the West End, not seeing that kind of wealth. But again, there wasn't nothing forced on me, so I started asking questions. So Bob told me that, hey, you're going to be a top draft pick, so you need to start thinking about an agent. So we worked on thinking about agents and picking the agent while the season was going on, and we would meet with different agents after the game at the executive end across the street from Freedom Hall.
Right.
So by the time George, by the time the Final Four hit and we went to Indianapolis, I had already chosen Mr. Bob Wook as my agent. So that
True.
part was out of the way from a distraction standpoint. You
Right.
know, that part was out of the way. And at the time, people don't realize Bob Wook was one of the top agents in
Oh,
the
yeah.
country.
Yeah.
He was what you would base the program called All This on. He was all this he,
Mhm.
about the agents. And so, OB, Otis Birdsong was one of the clients myself, and Joe Barry Curl, Larry Bird, and choosing Mr. Wolf. I had that out of the way. So the next thing was to wait on the draft.
Mhm.
And draft wise, you know, they was projecting me to go number one. But what ended up happening is, well, Boston had the number one pick, Utah had number two, Golden State had number three. Red Auerbach and Mr. Wolf were like this. They both
Mhm.
lived in Boston. And at one time, Mr. Wolf represented probably about 95% of the Celtics,
Right.
you
Right.
know. And
Mhm.
they had a great relationship. And the plan was, he told Mr. Wolf, he said, hey, we want to get Griffith in Boston. And we're going to make some moves to make that happen. So what they end up doing is trading Robert Parrish to Golden State for Joe Barry Carroll,
Okay.
right?
Right.
For a number one draft pick,
Mhm.
right? So Golden State ends up getting a number one draft pick. Boston and Golden State switch spots. So now Boston's, instead of number one, they're number three, and Golden State's got number one, Utah's number two. Red Auerbach's plan was, okay, if they got rid of a center, they're gonna take a center. So they took Joe Barry Carroll at number two. He was hoping that Utah would take Kevin McHale, which left me at number three. So he would have his two main goals was to get a big man and a shooting guard. You
Right.
know, Utah took me at number two, which kind of derailed everything, and then they end up taking Joe Barry Carroll.
Okay.
So that's how I ended up in Utah. Unfortunately, you know, when you're a high draft pick, you go to a low team most of the
Mhm.
time, and then
Mhm.
I say that's what happened. So
Right.
that was tough for me my first year in the pros. That was a worst year in my career, as far as being motivated and going from a national championship team to a team that's the lowest in the league. They only had 2,500 people at the game. You're going from 16,500, a sold out crowd, to 2,500. You know, you're going from a city which has a 25% African American community to a state who only has 1% Black in the whole state.
Right.
Uh, so culture shock was there. The winning program was there, so it was tough. You know, I had to be mentally tough. I had to motivate myself to be able to perform, because now, you know, basketball is my job now. You know, watching, you know, other draft picks that I play with, you know, be in major cities, you know, as we go on the road and seeing how the major cities is just, you know, something that you aspire to be in as a pro. And here I am in Utah, wasn't nothing to do for African American, nothing. We had one Black barbershop named Bob named Billy. There was no African American radio. TV was limited. You know, it was just it was different. So you gotta put yourself in a mental state to overcome all them obstacles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
so what motivated you? How many other Black players are on the team?
Well,
That
on the flip side,
Okay.
you know, it was Agent Danley was there.
Okay.
My rookie year, it was a revolving door for players.
Okay.
We went through a lot of players. You know, the stability didn't come until my third year. My rookie year at the end, we ended up picking up Ricky Green, which is all-star, played
Right.
the man. We picked up Mark Eaton in the draft. And then my third year, we got Darrell Griffith from NC State.
Mhm.
We drafted Dominique Wilkins. He said he wasn't coming. So they ended up, he literally said, I'm not coming. So
Right.
they traded him to the Hawks for John Drew and Freeman Williams.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but we turned it around in 3 years. You know, we went from the cellar team to winning our division in 3 years. You
Yeah.
know, so the trajectory was there. You
Yeah.
know, and really in my professional uh, uh, time at Utah, which is my whole career, that was one of the most fulfilling moments, that when they raised the banner us Midwest Division champions, because I knew
Mhm.
where we came from,
Right.
and it was a sign of winning again, and it
Yeah.
brought back memories of being at University of Louisville and going in the right direction.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we were in the Western Conference and we couldn't get past Showtime, Magic
Yeah.
Johnson, and the
Yeah.
Lakers.
Yeah.
But you look back, yours, I said without hesitation, I wish I was in a major market, you know, asked to get traded several times. Could have been to a major market several times. As my rookie, my first contract went out, I was
How
in New York
long was your first contract?
five
5
five
years.
years.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was the New York Knicks #1 player for a free agency.
Okay.
Could have went to New York. But that was my contract. The year my contract went out was the first year of the salary cap.
Okay.
A lot of the general managers didn't really understand the cap, but the agents knew what the cap was about, how to work it. So New York wanted to get me. They had a relationship with Mr. Wolf, because Mr. Wolf represented Bill Cartwright, and Bill Cartwright was already at the Knicks, and he had broke his foot and had a fifth metatarsal injury. They were saying they was going to wait, and Mr. Wolf was telling them, hey, the way the collective bargaining agreement means is that you could sign your existing player and it won't affect the cap.
Mm-hmm.
But if you sign an outside player, it will affect the cap. So Mr. Wolf was saying, hey, if you want Griffith, sign him now because you got the money. If you sign Bill Cartwright, ain't gonna be no money left. You can still give Bill Cartwright the money you want to give him because he's an existing player after you sign Griffith.
Mm-hmm.
David Busher was the general manager, and he didn't understand it. He signed Cartwright first, and he still tried to come to me. They only had $200,000 left.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Mr. Wolf was saying, hey, we try to tell you, So that instance is another instance where I could have went to New York through a trade. Butch Greer was coaching there at the time, and that trade didn't work out because Utah wanted too much money. So my whole aspiration, if I had to look back in the pros, would not being able to play in a basic market. But in all that saying that, Utah was great to me.
Yeah.
They were. We went from the lows to the highest, and you had to do it over again. Again, like I said, I would rather play them. No regrets of being in Utah.
Yeah, but true to your character, Darrell. You took a bad situation and turned it into a good situation.
Yeah.
You played with the same team your entire career. Great relationships with the Utah Jazz organization, community, and so forth. You still maintained your contact with Louisville when you were back off season, back to Louisville, working on next steps as your career came to an end. So that worked out well. As we near the end of our podcast, I don't want to leave out your family, your mom, your dad, your
Yes.
sister and brother, who meant a whole lot to you. Kind of tell us a little bit about throughout this whole career, what your family meant to you as far as moving your success.
Well, my family was always there for me. As you can contest to, George, when we went out of town, they was always there. In high school, in the same way, if possible, in college. What you really don't realize and you really appreciate as you move through your career, particularly when you go to the pros, is what your family has to put up with because of your success.
Uh-huh.
Things that you don't see when you're not around, people talking about me and they stepping up for them because, there's all kind of rumors going on and just saying stuff that's not true. The sacrifices that they make, it makes you really, really appreciate your family, your mom and dad, and your sister and brothers. And
Right.
I think a lot of athletes can say the same story, that's the rock, for you getting to where you need to be at. I had a good family. I had a great family. My mom and dad were they sacrificed a lot, which coming up, you just think it's what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And as a father and a mother, that is what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
But we take that for granted, and you look back on it, and it really makes you appreciate it even more on what they meant and what they sacrificed, even my brothers and sisters, and some friends, close friends that sacrifice, their sacrifice paved the way for your path. And it's very appreciative.
Yeah. Well, and I've know your family well, and even your family back in Owensboro, that were very supportive as well. And I always admired how they always came to your defense if in fact needed. Especially your brother Mike, was always there, and your sister, there as well. So, and your mom has always been a gym. Please tell her I said hello. But
Yes, yeah. She
has
turned 94 last month.
turned what, 94?
94. Yeah.
Outstanding, outstanding. Yeah. So one last thing, we lost your hip connection, Bobby Turner, not too long ago. Um, Tell me a little bit about the relationship as you all went through University of Louisville and he wound up leaving or not being a part. How did that affect your overall relationship? How'd you all move on
Well,
from there?
George, if you seen when we was growing up, we all had aspirations of playing college basketball together and going
Right,
to the pros together. But life plays out.
right,
And so Bobby became academically ineligible my senior year. So one of the hardest things and one of the joyful things for me and one of the hardest things for me is when we won a national championship, which is what we set out to do going in as a freshman at the University of Louisville and doing it without Bobby. You know,
mhm, right,
that was hard. A lot of people didn't see that in me, but that was hard.
uh-huh,
Uh, because as kids, that's what we dreamed to do together. And then, uh, going to the pros and draft night and get drafted. And, it's all, you know, cheers and great and dandy. But, you go back to the hotel room and you think about, I think about Bobby because I want him to be there with me in that
right,
draft somehow. And,
right,
and that didn't happen. And then years later, me and Bobby was talking and he came out to me and he told me, he said, man, when you won the Jackson championship, man, he said, I had tears of joy, I had tears of sadness.
right,
He said, because I know I was supposed to be there with you.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it was tough.
Yeah, yeah, but I imagine because you guys were I mean, you didn't see one without the other. I mean, as you all were growing up, it was just if one was there was the other one, and
Yeah.
and,
So, as you go into the pros and life happens, George, because now I'm in Utah, now I'm doing things. Bobby's back here working. We connected, during the off season, but it wasn't like it was when we were coming up,
right,
because we were together all the time. And so our career paths changed and our relationship changed as far as the consistency of being around each other.
right.
But my love for him never changed.
Yeah, yeah. I think all of us that, grow up and grow through those relationships going those same things. The good thing is you just mentioned that y'all talked about it, and,
Yes.
that keeps the relationship there.
Yep.
Tell us what you're doing now in University of Louisville.
I am the assistant vice president for community engagement here at the University of Louisville. Community engagement is a big part of what the University of Louisville stands for. We have 4 core areas that we deal with: economic development, health, and then health and human services, and the quality of life. Is where we try to go out and touch the community to network, use our influence to improve the areas I just mentioned. So we're such a presence in this community that you know we want to make sure that the community knows that we're just not here as an institution taking people's money for go to school and athletic program. No, we're here to assist. Our department lets the community know that we're with you. We do programs in different schools. We connect with different community programs to enhance what they do. We can help elevate a lot of the areas that I mentioned just by our presence and the power that we have and the financial strength that we have to partner and make the community better. So it's been fun. It's something, George, that I think that the Lord put me to do it because I've been doing community relations like yourself all your life.
Yeah,
And it's a new title for me, but it's fulfilling for me to go out and to connect with some businesses and get them to do business with the University of Louisville, to open University of Louisville eyes and say, hey, we need to do more with the African American community. There's businesses in the community that feel disconnected from the university, and I want to bridge that gap.
Right.
Now we getting more contracts from a business standpoint from the University of Louisville throughout the African American community and the people of color. So that's been real fulfilling.
All right. Well, Darrell, I tell you, I'm so proud of you, man, and watching you grow up and your career through professional basketball, college there at Wesleyan. What people don't know is that you could have been probably an all-star in track. You were fast as hell. You could jump like hell, but we never could get you out there on the track.
Yeah, I
think
remember.
did you participate one time?
So what happened is, what was the track coach name, George?
Coach Thompson.
Coach Thompson. Actually, people don't realize the track team got more state championships than basketball.
Yep. Eight in a row. Yeah.
Yeah, they were tough, and so Coach Thompson was say, hey, Grib, we need to get you out here, and we want you to run, and so he challenged me. He said run with run the 100, and I said, if I beat these guys, will you leave me alone? He said, yeah. So they had cleats on. I beat everybody in the 100, and then he wanted me to jump in the high jump, and I agreed to do that. So when I go to the high jump, I broke a regional record warming up, and I didn't even know the technique. So what ended up happening is the other coaches were like, nah, this ain't gonna work. So there's a rule where you have to participate in X amount of events during the season before you participate in the region. And Coach Thompson just brought me for the regionals, and they were like, nah, so I was just go out.
Yeah. I was assistant coach, with the track team. So I remember vividly and talking to him about it and say, hey, Coach, I don't think you can do this or not. But yeah, you were a great athlete all the way around, great student athlete in the classroom. All your teachers respected you and so forth, man. So I'm glad to see that you went on and had your career, came back to Louisville and doing such great things there. We are very appreciative of you being on the program today, and please tell the family and all that said hello, and thank you for being here with us.
Oh man, no, George. Guys like yourself and Coach Houston, y'all paid the way. Y'all don't really you realize how much of a stamp you guys had in my career, especially the longevity that we've had being friends and watching you guys, even in business. Watching you from afar, and you and Coach and the guys that were in our head, Charlie Johnson. He used to drive us around to see how you guys navigated your lives after the game was over with, was also inspirational, because as you well know, that journey in basketball is short-lived. Life goes on.
Yeah. Gotta have a fallback position.
Yeah. And I appreciate you being a mentor at the time and a mentor from afar, just by your presence, man. So
thank you, sir.
Love you, man. Tell Sarita and everybody I said hello, and much love, brother.
I will do. Thank you.
This has been Catch as Catch Can. Your success story is waiting to be written. What will you catch today? Go to tinsleyspeaks.com for exclusive content, resources, and opportunities. Catch as Catch Can with George Tinsley Sr. is a production of Advantage Media.